Hey, everybody. Great to see you all. Welcome to the 2026 Timbers Fan Forum. This is kind of an annual event right now. It's become one, which is really fun. It's a really great way to kick off the season. We're just a few days away from the Columbus Crew, Providence Park on Saturday night. Yeah. The 16th season of the Portland Timbers. The 100th year of Providence Park as well, which is really cool. You know these people up here, but in case you don't, Portland Timbers head coach Phil Neville, CEO of the Portland Timbers Heather Davis, center back Finn Surman. There we go. All right, Finn. Yeah. And the general manager of the Portland Timbers, Ned Grabavoy. So the way this works, everybody had a chance to submit questions. Every annual member that was even invited, and not everybody actually ended up being able to come or getting selected to come. And so we're going to start with those questions that were submitted by maybe some of you guys, certainly other annual members. For these four. We'll do that for a while, and then we'll open it up to kind of live Q&A. So you'll have plenty of time to think of questions. This is a really cool, unique, exclusive chance to ask these four whatever you want. Grill them. They're ready for it, no doubt about it. We're going to start with Phil. We'll go left to right. Why not? And since it's a new season, we'll start with a question about new players. This question specifically asks about one new player, but I want to ask you about kind of your three major additions to the team so far in this offseason. The question is, what formation will you use this year, and how will Cole Bassett fit into that, as he is a different type of player than David Ashala? And then after, speaking about Cole, I would love to hear your thoughts on Alex Bonateg and on Brandon Bye as well.
Yeah, well, I think, is that on? Yeah, evening everyone. The Cole Bassett was probably the one player that I wanted to sign in the off season. I had followed his career for the last 3 or 4 seasons. I think looking at last season and the lack of real goals that we had coming from different areas of the pitch, especially central midfield, we looked abroad. We looked in obviously the MLS, and we saw in Cole someone that scored goals regularly, was a really big assist maker, played in that number 8 position, attacking midfield, almost like a throwback to the box-to-box type midfield play that I felt we were missing with losing Christian Paredes in particular. And I think he's at a brilliant age of 24. He's got really good experience behind him. Ned obviously went out there and got the deal done, and I think from the very first training session, we thought he was a good player, and then since the first training session, he's an absolute outstanding player. I think he's someone that will be the central point of our midfield, this organisation, this team, hopefully for the next 2 or 3 seasons. We've set him some really big goals because he's a really ambitious kid. We talked about MLS All-Star, we talked about World Cup for USA, or getting back into the national team, and he is incredibly ambitious, and I think you will love when you see him on Providence Park on Saturday. Alex Bonateg came from the same league as Finn. If he's half as good as what Finn is, I think we will have signed a really good centre back. I think the difference between him and Finn came in at a really young age, 19, needed 3 or 4 months just to get used to the Portland weather and the training and everything. And now he's an okay player in the team. Alex Bonateg is 2 or 3 years older. He's got a little bit more experience behind him. I think you will love him. He's a left-footed player. He's got style. He's got technique. He can play the ball through the lines. And Brandon Bye is someone that we've looked at for a long time as well, because we felt that Juan Mosquera needed real competition. When Juan was out towards the end of the season carrying a little bit of an injury, we felt in that area we lacked a little bit of depth. So in Bonateg, Bye and Bassett, we signed the 3 Bs. I think we are really pleased with what we've got. And I think goals is something that we want to add to the team. With Cole in the team, I think you're going to see a little bit different makeup in midfield, with probably more attacking midfield player rather than playing sort of like 2 midfield players in a pivot. And I think you'll love the 3 signings we've got so far.
This was not a written down question, but I want to follow up with you, Finn, because Phil mentioned Alex and he's Aussie in the same league. my wife and I went to Australia a year ago, and this is going somewhere, I promise. I was surprised at the rivalry between Australians and Kiwis. Like every Australian we talked to, you could tell that for whatever reason, they didn't like New Zealand. I feel like and vice versa. I don't know if that's just friendly or not, but so now you've got an Aussie potentially as a center back partner. Like how's that been? How have you guys got along?
Yeah, you're right. Aussies and Kiwis do have a bit of a rivalry, to say the least. He's been good though since he's joined. Ian and I we went out for dinner with him on his first night here, took him out and just tried to talk to him, make him feel welcome. And I think we could tell straight away he's a great guy and someone that we're all excited to have part of our team and potentially even play together with.
Yeah, I forgot to tell a story about Alex Bonateg. When me and Ned always speak to the player, maybe on a Zoom or if he's local. And it was 5 o'clock in the morning in Australia, and me and Ned was on a Zoom to him. And we introduced ourselves, and Alex Bonateg said, "Well, I've actually met you before, Phil." And I said, "No, we've never met before." When I was at Everton, he'd won a competition to go and visit Tim Cahill, who was my best friend at the time. And I remember one Sunday that Tim, how can I describe Tim? He's my best friend, but he's a little bit cheeky. And he invited me over for Sunday lunch, and he never invites me over to his house anytime. And so I thought, okay, I'll go over. And when I went over, there was 4 Australian young boys there. And they'd all won a competition to see Tim and hang around with Tim. And Tim had obviously got to me to his house. And Alex Bonateg was one of the players at his house at 11 years of age. And I thought it was like, fate works in mysterious ways. And I'd met him, but I just don't remember him. So.
Wow. Heather, on to you. First question for you is, what's one behind-the-scenes operational decision at Providence Park that fans might not notice, but has a big impact on their match day experience?
Wow, starting off with a tough one. First, I need to just acknowledge these young gentlemen here, one over here, both wearing the new Civic Stadium kit, looking super sharp.
Yes.
Looks great. Love it. Thank you guys for being here. That's a tough question. I don't know that there's one operational thing that I can really point to. I can say that this stadium turns 100 years old today. It is the 4th oldest operating professional sports stadium in the country, behind Fenway, Soldier Field, and Wrigley. So it takes a lot of people and a lot of work to wake it up after the winter and then to put on these match day experiences. We have a world-class operations team that goes through. We power wash the stadium. We've been doing that for a week. We have several more days to go. There's birds that live in the stadium, so we have to deal with that as the stadium wakes up from the winter and then again in the summer. There's just so much that goes on behind the scenes. We have a really, really great team, from our operations team to our security team to our guest services. And there is just a ton that goes into it. I know you guys probably mostly see when we miss something or when there's not hot water in a bathroom or the concourses are crowded, but I can assure you that there's a lot that goes into getting this place up to snuff to welcome you guys back on Saturday, and we couldn't do it without an incredible team of people.
Finn, you've now been here for a year and a half, as Phil said, and you've had a chance to settle in. Have you had a chance to experience Portland, the Pacific Northwest, off the pitch? Where do you like to go? Where do you like to eat? What experiences? What do you like to do around Portland?
To be honest, I stay at home a lot of the time. So I don't do a whole lot.
Smart answer with your coach and your GM.
Yeah.
Sitting,
Exciting.
Yeah, next to you.
But there's a few restaurants that I like to go to. There's one called Piazza Italia, which is close to where I live. Nice Italian place. It's good. And there's, again, another coffee shop just down the road, which is Sister's Coffee, which is where I like to go. And on my days off and just switch off a little bit. Other than that, last year, Ian and I were in a mini golf league on the east side of Portland, so we'd go there once a week. But I've not done enough exploring, to be honest, of the Pacific Northwest.
That's pretty good. How'd you guys do in the league?
We won, of course.
You won?
Yeah, we did.
Wow. All right, Ned, this is a big year, and it's actually kind of the end of an era for MLS. This is the last season that's going to start now in February and then end in December and be played in one calendar year. Next summer, the calendar shifts. It'll go from July-ish to May-ish. There's going to be a short little season, right, next spring. How will that calendar shift that's coming next summer of 27, affect the way MLS acquires and sells players in the global market? And then I guess specifically for you, your position, your perspective, what are you doing now to get ready for a big change that's coming in a year?
Yeah, and first, just good evening to everybody. Obviously, I know that we've got a lot of faithful in the room tonight. We love doing these events and having this opportunity to be in front of some of the most important fans that we have within the club. So thanks to everyone that's here this evening. In terms of the upcoming, season shift and the calendar shift within MLS, I think it's extremely exciting. It's obviously something that's been talked about for a number of years, and a lot of the logic behind it is to try to align with some of the biggest leagues and the most important leagues in the world. And you look at the transfer windows and aligning those in terms of the buying and selling of players and the opportunities to bring talented players to MLS, but also to essentially move players on. I think on the sporting side, that's probably the biggest driver of why we think it makes a ton of sense to do. Obviously, early on, I think there'll be a lot of newness to it in terms of the season and having an off season that sits in the middle of the summertime and those things as well. But I know our club was really, really big advocates to push for this shift, and we think it's going to draw more eyeballs to the game in MLS as well.
Phil, this next one again from a member is written: as annual members who invest year after year, identity matters to us. This is the person asking the question. How do you define the Timbers' identity on the field, and how do you help new players understand what it means to wear the badge of the Portland Timbers?
Well, I think when a new player comes, I think it's vital that you introduce them to what this club is all about. This club has got incredible history. I think we've got a captain at the club in Diego Chara that's lived through a lot of this history over the last 10, 15 years and knows all about the club. So Diego plays a big part in that. The owner, Merritt, plays an incredible part in that because of his passion for the club and the way that he makes sure he gets to know every single new player, the player's family, and make sure that they settle well. We have a great infrastructure in terms of making people welcome. But I think the history of the club, the log ceremony, I always think is something that needs explaining. Why do we do it? What's the history behind it? Timber Joe, etc. So I think that is part of the embedding process of the whole the new players that come to the club. When we spoke to Cole, in particular, Cole was at Colorado. The one thing that every manager, every former player, or every player that comes to this club talks about is the incredible atmosphere at this club. And that, from someone like Cole Bassett, who plays in Colorado, he said that one of the main things is why he was so turned on by coming here was when he comes here, he said it's a proper football stadium with proper fans, and he loves that type of atmosphere. So straight away, I think people from outside the club know a lot about our history anyway, because it's one of the founder clubs of this league. In terms of the identity of the team, I always think the team on the pitch have to mirror the manager, but in particular they have to mirror the owner and the fans. And I think this club wants entertaining, wants excitement, wants a team that takes risk. And I think over the last 2 years, last year I was disappointed with our sort of like offensive play. The year before, I thought we were outstanding in our offensive play. We were exciting. Every time that we conceded a goal, we always looked like we were coming back from defeat. And I think this season we've placed a large element on two things. I think to do well in this league, you have to score more than 55 goals, which means that we have to average probably 2 goals a game throughout the whole season, which means we're going to have to take risks. And then defensively, without a shadow of a doubt, we have to improve defensively. The last 2 seasons haven't been good enough. And to concede 45 goals or less, I think in terms of what we've seen over the history of the last 4 or 5 years, probably guarantees you to be in the top 5, top 4. 40 goals or less probably gets you into the top 2 or 1. So I think we've got real key performance indicators this year that will hopefully get us right to the very top.
Heather, why is stadium food and drink so expensive? People would purchase a lot more. This is, again, not me saying this, the question asker saying this. People would purchase a lot more if the prices were reasonable and matched the price and quality of food and drink surrounding the outside of the stadium. This one maybe literally is grilling you, this question, about.
Finn, would you like to answer that question? Yeah, we are very aware that there is an affordability crisis in this country and that everyone is feeling pinched in a lot of different ways. We work closely with our concessionaire to help set pricing every year. And candidly, the pricing increases that you've seen over the last few years really are just keeping up with the inflationary costs of the underlying products. So we're not really looking to raise prices to make more money. We're looking to raise prices to just keep up with the cost of hot dogs and beef and all of that stuff. This year, we've really made a concerted effort to try to avoid that. So craft beer is staying the same. Most of your food and non-alcoholic beverage staples are staying the same. We, continue to really focus on being, if not competitive, ideally below our peer venues, definitely in Portland, but really throughout the Pacific Northwest. I think we have the most affordable beer prices of any venue, sports venue in the Pacific Northwest. So that's a marker that we try to stick to. We also continue to try to do other initiatives to try and make things more affordable. So we still have the value menu on the East Vista, and this year we're shaking up that product mix so that stays fresh, and that's been popular with families. Obviously, Tanner Ridge is a higher ticket price point, but we have that as an all-inclusive food and non-alcoholic beverage space with our guest chef program that has some of the heaviest hitters in the Portland food scene this year, so that's exciting. We have 15% off concessions pregame for all annual members, so don't forget to show your annual member card and your SeatGeek app to the concession stands pregame, and you get that discount. And then we will have a couple of matches this year where we have discounted concessions throughout the match as well. So we continue to try and focus on it. We know it's a pain point for really anyone going to any entertainment venue in the country, and we continue to try to do our best.
Finn, this is allows you to make a pretty big statement, I think, which you don't have to do. But the question is, will you be in the World Cup? And are you competing for a starting role for the All Whites? This person would love to make it up to BC to see you play on the biggest stage.
Playing in the World Cup is a massive goal of mine for this year. And a part of that is, starting there. I think within our national team, there's probably 3 or 4 centre-backs that are competing at the moment to be able to start games there, and that's going to come down to how I perform at the club this season, but also how I play in March in the lead up to the World Cup and before the squad gets picked. So I can answer one of those is I am competing for a starting spot. Will I be there or not? I don't know. Hopefully I will be, but no, it's something that's super exciting for me and both for my country this year, being able to go to a World Cup after 16 years of not being there. So no, it's something to really look forward to for us, and yeah, fingers crossed.
Awesome. I know everybody here wants to see you, for sure. Ned, next one for you. The question asker says, we're very thin in the midfield and on the wing with the departures of David and Jonathan Rodriguez and the injury to Omir. What can you tell us about the rumored 2 players we are close to signing, again, their words, and how those rumored 2 players will fill those holes?
Yeah, I think, Phil spoke a little bit about some of the additions that we've already made to the group this offseason. But we know that we want to further strengthen the squad, which we've continued to look to do, really in 2 positions that were outlined there, obviously both in center midfield. And then we'd like to add an additional attacking piece as well. We are in the process right now of working on finalizing the attacking piece. I'm hopeful that comes to fruition and happens this week, sometime in the next few days. It's actually a player that we've tracked for a really long time and was in a final group of players when we signed Anthony from the Portuguese League. And so it's a player that we've continued to follow over the last few seasons, fits it a little bit within our DNA, 23, 24 years old, young, hungry, talented player that we think will give Phil, an additional option to use in the attack. And then obviously in the center and midfield, we've got flexibility to look at a number of things. We still have an open U22 slot that we can use. I think the preference right now is to probably go with a more experienced player in that position, and we'll look to build things out from there as we go forward.
Phil, this next one is similar to what you were just kind of answering and saying, but it's about specifically play at home at Providence Park. The question is, we finished with a negative goal differential at home last year for the first time as a club. How is the coaching staff addressing the dip in production both at home and offensively, which you just talked about, for 2026?
Yeah, well, I think we've worked really hard in preseason. I felt our defensive. I felt that in terms of our defensive structure towards the end of the season, I think the goals we let in, particularly in the playoff games against San Diego, really let us down. I always feel that we're gonna score goals. So I think if we become really high level at the defensive aspects of the game, I told you about the 40 goals or less. If we keep clean sheets, I think we've got enough attacking players on the pitch to be really devastating. I really do. But I think if you look back to my first season here, at times we had to score 3 goals to win games of football, sometimes even 4 goals to win games of football. So yes, it was exciting. But I think this year, what we're really going to focus on, yes, is the scoring of goals and being a really risk-taking team. But I think being a better defensive unit, I think, is something that will help us be successful, win trophies, and bring some silverware to Providence Park. So I think that's the key.
Speaking of Providence Park, Heather, this one is about Providence Park celebrating its 100th year, which you discussed, 4th oldest stadium in the country. Are there future plans to update aspects of the old west and north sides of the stadium, so the parts that are 100 years old? For example, replacing wooden benches in the upper bowl with seats, or building safe standing areas for the north end supporter section? That's kind of been an ongoing question for years.
Yeah, this is a conversation that we are having very actively internally and with the city. This is obviously a city-owned venue. As you all know, we privately financed this expansion in 2019, and I think the conversation not so long after that really did need to shift to what is the future and the viability of this stadium in the next 5, 10, 15 years. You know, you're seeing this conversation across the river with Moda. I'm sure everyone is following that news. We feel that cities and states investing in these professional sports teams and these venues as economic and cultural drivers is really important. We're supportive of what the Blazers are looking to do. We think them staying in Portland is vital to the future of the city. And we are having those same conversations over here. We're not that far off. You know, I laugh sometimes, talk to the Blazers president occasionally about what they're doing over there, and the notion that it's the oldest NBA arena that's not renovated at 35 years old, I think, and we're, you know, about 3 times that. So I feel his pain and then some. But, you know, at this venue, because it is so old, you know, we have a lot of work to do, and this is ongoing now around what does the deferred maintenance needs of the stadium look like for the next 10 years? And then what is architecturally and financially even possible at a venue that is this old? You know, the concourses, as I'm sure you guys all experience, are tight. We only have 1 for 2 levels. Is that something that can be remedied, or is that just the stadium and there's nothing really that can be done about it? The things that this questioner mentioned, the benches and safe standing, are probably 2 of the higher items on the list that we're in active conversations about. But again, there's no easy answers to any of this. It's extraordinarily expensive, difficult, time-consuming. You know, all of those kinds of renovations you look at. Do you have to close the stadium, and then where do you play, and sort of, you know, all of the logistics that come with that when you're talking about a 100-year-old venue. So yes, I probably spend as much of my job as anything on this issue, actually, but there's not any easy answers for sure, but it's something we talk about for sure.
Finn, question about the team coming into this year and after the preseason. From your perspective, how is the chemistry of the team this year, and how good can this team be in 2026?
I'm super excited for this season. I think some of the new players that Phil's talked about that have come in are really exciting, and also having players like Chris, who came in halfway through the season last year, and you kind of seen him start to get going at the back end. It's really great for him to have a full preseason and be acclimated to our team and to the league, essentially. So yeah, I'm super excited for this year. I think the team chemistry is something that we've built a lot up throughout preseason. I think that we were extremely fortunate to stay in an amazing place down in Palm Springs, and that kind of, I don't know how you say it, forced us to hang out a lot more outside of the pitch. Usually you go away and we stay in a hotel, and so it's just training, meals, back to your room, whereas this time we were able to hang out in shared spaces and really just spend more time together, which was amazing, and I do believe that translates to on the pitch. So, you know, we're all really excited for the season and confident that we can perform well.
Ned, this next one is a good follow-up to what you were just talking about potentially signing a player. Can you walk us through the process of acquiring a player? How much does analytics and character evaluation factor into the decision-making process? You're also sitting next to a player that you acquired a year and a half ago, an acquisition that's gone quite well. Take us through what it takes for you to get a player here to Portland.
Yeah, well, it's a really in-depth process, obviously. I was actually thinking when Finn answered the question earlier, I sure miss being a player, you know, when we could just take naps and go mini golf and some of those things. But, you know, it's an area in the club that I've worked in all the way from the beginning 10 years ago as sort of being the only scout in the entire club, and then essentially taking on, you know, more and more ownership and responsibility in terms of player acquisition. That the process has continued to evolve, you know, over the years. And so we have a very detailed process now where we essentially, you know, get together with Phil. We look at the roster, him and I. We talk about what's needed within the team. And then essentially we go and we build out profiles. And building out those profiles is everything from, you know, the type of player that we want to have to the data and the analytics to set, you know, 10 of the most important key metrics that player needs to possess to fit within our style and within our team philosophies. Then as we go through, we're casting a wide net. Obviously, some of it is agent relationships. Some of it's just certain players are going to pop up when we put these metrics together, and it's going to show us the players that are strong, you know, in those different areas. And then it's just continues on and on. There's a ton of scouting that goes in and live scouting. You know, I can remember back to when, you know, we had brought Finn in, the amount of staff and the amount of people that we have just watching one player who's just a target who we're not quite sure if we're going to be able to acquire and get. It is quite a long and lengthy process. You've got now, we do a high level of detail in terms of the personality and the character. Those things for us are vital. I think we realized that over the last few years that we really want to bring in good people and not just good players to be a part of our team culture and fit within the environment within the club. And then you get into the real difficult part, which is the negotiation. And obviously trying to get a deal done and to do it in a way that's going to fit within your budget and also not take away from the rest of the team. So, like I said, it's a very, very long and detailed process, but one that's definitely evolved at the club during my time.
I'm just going to interrupt real quick because I was talking to someone on staff about this earlier today, but Ned's got a lot on his shoulders for this club. Concession pricing, not among those things, but nonetheless, still a lot. But watching him do this job, and I've been in other sports leagues, I think soccer GM in the U.S. is by far the most difficult job in professional sports in America. It is incredible what these guys do. They have a worldwide talent pool. They're negotiating in myriad of different languages in different countries and different cultures. It's really an incredible operation that he runs, and I just wanted to say I think we're lucky to have him here. So,
Amen. Phil, what young players have stood out to you and have taken big steps during this preseason, this training camp? Any T2 or academy players that you see as having a big future?
Well, I think Gage Gear has took a massive step forward in pre-season. I think he's ready to play. He's ready to start. I think we've been super excited about him. You look back at this time last year, he came with us from pre-season after being a draft pick. Every level that he's been at, from the college to T2 to first team, he's stepped up every level. So we're super pleased with him. We think he's got a really, really big future. On the sort of like two camps we went on, Aizoita, Soyajura, Noah Santos, Bryce Van Voice, Charles Ondo. These players, all five got opportunities. All five did themselves really good. We've got a new T2 coach now. I think he's going to be absolutely outstanding. I think Eric Aizoita and Noah Santos, I think, are the standout players from the tour. I think they handled, when you come up from T2 to first team, there's two big challenges. One, to compete in training every day, because it's harder, the intensity, the quickness of the training, and just being able to every single day have to go out there and produce is difficult for a young player. And if you can do that, then that's the first big step. And then the temperament to play in an MLS game, against MLS players, against players with experience, against EP players, against Max TAM players. These are big challenges for the kids, particularly in pre-season. I think we've got an outstanding T2 side this year, and I think those two are ones that we're looking to maybe progress throughout this season.
You've done well answering that question, because the last question for you was specifically, has Gage Guerra earned more minutes this season? So you answered your last question as well. So you're done. You're good.
Yeah, well,
until we open it up to them.
If you look at the last game, the last home game against San Diego, when if you need a goal, he's the guy to go to. And it was funny because their keeper obviously went off with a concussion that night. Without that concussion sub, Gage was the sixth sub onto the field, and he obviously scored the goal. He's fearless. He's a bull. He's tough. I mean, ask Finn. He marks him in training every day. He doesn't give a damn who he's playing against. He just kicks them. So I think he's someone that I think you'll see a lot out on the field this year.
I would just quickly add to that as well. We speak about young players, and some of these players that are coming through our academy. We're a club that has historically signed young players. We've gone out and made investments in the U22 space. We've brought other players along. Finn, when he got here, was just 20 years. You can have those things, and you can have interesting young players. You need a coach that will back the young player and play the young players. I think Phil has shown since he's been at the club that he's willing to give those players the opportunity. He's continued to do that year after year. And I think that's why we've seen a lot of these young players continue to come along and really develop. And then you have players that have been in the club for 4 or 5 years, and they've played 100 games. They understand the DNA and the culture, and those are the players that kind of continue that new core forward for the club as well. So I can't say enough about him and the rest of the staff as well in terms of the work that they put into these young players.
Absolutely. Heather, yeah. Great. Amen. This next question is that this person thinks it's safe to say that the broader Portland soccer community is disappointed that we're not selected for upcoming international matches like pre-World Cup friendlies, Women's World Cup, the Summer Olympics. Do you have a feel for what the disconnect is there? Is it as simple as the turf field, or is there a wider issue like lack of promotion? And I will also fold in your final question, which is the annual question: does the club have any interest in putting in a grass field?
Well, thank you for asking, Jake.
Yes, you're welcome. That one's in ink.
Yeah,
it's
it's
in permanent
not
mark.
the turf. I mean, you're seeing at MetLife Stadium, you're seeing at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, all of these World Cup venues that are putting in grass for the World Cup. That is imminently possible and a thing that gets done regularly. So it's not really about the turf. I think there's a few factors, honestly. The size of the stadium probably comes into play now, whereas 8 years ago, 20,000, 25,000 might have been enough. They're really looking at the NFL-sized stadiums for most of these events anymore. The age of the stadium does come into play, as we love it here. Obviously, this is a historic venue. I, have been taken to referring to it as a cathedral of American soccer, and I think that that's a really apt description. But more often, these major events are looking for the new, shiny, turnkey stadiums that don't have quite that same character, honestly. The other thing that I think factors into it, and you're seeing this play out if you're watching any of the news around the World Cup, but these are major investments for the cities and states that they're located in. I mean, you're seeing right now that there's a lot of talk in Foxborough about the fact that they're being asked to pony up about $8 million in security between police and private security for the World Cup games, and they don't have that in their budget. And so now they're talking with FIFA about can they even issue the license to do the games and all of that. And that's the case with these major events anymore. It is not like it was even in the early, 2010s. Like, these are major investments that require cities and states to pony up millions of dollars. Some cities and municipalities have, sports authorities and funds that are really designed to tap into for things like Super Bowl, for things like World Cup. Portland does not have that. It has always been a matter of private fundraising here through Sport Oregon and other organizations. And so when you're talking about the tens of millions of dollars that it takes to do a World Cup friendly, even certainly a Women's World Cup game or Summer Olympics, that's the kind of investment and buy-in that you need. And that's just not a model that's really been prevalent here in Portland. It's something that Sport Oregon works on a lot, and we work with them, and the Blazers work with them, and we really try to do that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of, aging infrastructure and venues and lack of sort of state and local ability to kind of provide the resources and funding that these events expect anymore.
Finn, this kind of follow-up to off the field stuff, and you've touched on it a couple times. Simple question: which players do you hang out with off the field? We know you play miniature golf with Ian. Anybody else? Like, who's
Ian
your crew
Smith,
on the team?
Ian Smith. All he hangs
Ian
around
Smith,
with
yeah.
is Ian Smith.
That's it. Just
I think
these
he's from
two.
Colorado, actually, Finn. He's not from New Zealand.
That's right.
Yeah, obviously Ian. It's just
And
easy.
not Alex, apparently, because you guys are mortal enemies.
Yeah. Obviously Ian is easy because we're same age, so we get on well. And then probably the other two that I hang out with the most or spend the most time with, it would be James and Kamal, to be honest. I think the four of us hang out quite a decent amount, to be honest, whether that's going out and doing something or just some simple gaming at home. We'll jump on after training and stuff like that. Yeah, cool. Those three.
This is the last
And
question
do
before
I-
we open it up. So get ready for follow-ups. You can whatever you'd like to know from these four. It's for Ned, and it's getting into the kind of the nitty-gritty of roster building a little bit more as well. Why did the team decide to go with a 2DP 4U22 model to start the season? Is there a chance of switching to the 3-3 system this summer? What are some factors that contribute to the decision to switch or stay? And for those that don't know, basically your roster in MLS can either have 2 designated players and 4 under 22 initiative players, and then you get an extra $2 million in GAM, or 3 designated players, 3 under 22, and you don't get that extra GAM. So every team's got to declare and make a decision.
So when the league made this switch and you have to designate your roster one of 2 models, I don't think people understood at the time that, for the most part, you already have your roster kind of locked in to certain things, right? So there wasn't much flexibility, I think, for teams early on to make a decision on that. We've actually, over the last 12 months, kind of fluctuated in between being able to choose one or the other. I think part of the reason why we choose the 2 and 4 is when you look at the amount of competitions now in the league and the amount of games that you have, I'm a big believer that you got to have depth. You've got to be able to rely on a lot of players on the roster throughout the course of a season and not just be too top heavy, with 8 to 10 quality players. And we like to spread that out over bigger numbers, 16, 18, 20 players plus. I also think we've had a lot of success in the U22 space. I think if you look at some of the players that we've brought in, from a lot of leagues around the world, we've shown the ability to bring some of these young players along, and then they're not young anymore, and they become some of the most important players, within the team as well. I think for us specifically, a little bit, and currently between the 2 roster models, and looking at the area that we would potentially use a 3rd DP slot, I think that position probably for us at some point, maybe the conversation is around center forward. But I think for the time being, we've had Felipe Moore at the club for a number of years, and he's someone that's shown the ability to score goals consistently in this league. We made a big investment in Kevin Kelsey in that position. Gage Gare has also come along, and so I think for the time being, the 2 DP 4U22 model allows us more ability to go and get higher level players in other positions while not taking away from the rest of the group. So for the most part, I'd say 95% sure that's what's going to get locked in 3 days on Friday unless something crazy happens. And then I think as we go forward in the summer, this is a season as well where I do think we'll have some flexibility to potentially switch like last year if we want to.
For sure. Awesome. All right, those were great questions that were submitted. We're going to go out to live Q&A. You're ready to go right away. We love that. Love that. We've got a few microphones as well. So if you're able to wait so that everybody can hear the question, that'd be awesome. Here we go.
Great. This is a question for the coach. There's been a lot of career-ending injuries over the last few years, especially for some of our DP players. It's really heartbreaking. I'm curious, how does that compare to other clubs in terms of impactful injuries, and what is your trainers and you doing to make sure that, or to help stop that, or you get the gist of the question.
Yeah, I think Look, I don't think it's just at this club. I think if you look at all elite football around the world now, I think you're getting a lot more injuries because of the intensity, the speed, the amount of games that are being played. I think there's a lot more injuries worldwide, both in the men's and the women's game. The women's game especially, the horrendous knee injuries in terms of the history of the knee injuries. So I think we have an incredible sports science team. Last year, our injury record was, I think, about 89%. Every single day, we had 89% of our group training, which is really, really high. And I think in terms of sort of like the Jonathan Rodriguez, I think what you see there is you see someone that's throughout his career has pushed himself beyond his limits all the time, and ultimately that eventually catches up with you. And like I say, we have an incredible performance team that work all day long. Our players are in now from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, and bearing in mind that on the training field that's probably only an hour and a half's work. We're looking at the whole model: the nutrition, their diets, their sports science, their S&C in the gym, their recovery modalities. And I think rather than sort of like think, well, it's just a problem here, I think we're doing an incredible job at this football club to maintain the level of fitness through our team. But I do think in world football, it's a bigger conversation with the amount of football or the amount of things that we're asking. I look at some maybe the travel that we have to do. If we have a 3-game week in Portland and we have to travel to Dallas and then back home to play Colorado, that is tough. There's no sports science team in the world. There's no training method in the world that actually can prepare you for that. That is just sleep, eat the right things, and pray that you get through those different time zones that you're playing in, different climates that you're playing in, different surfaces that you're playing on. So I think it's a problem in world sport at this moment in time because of the demand for television, for sponsorship, and the demand on these guys. It's become a 12-month-a-year season, particularly like Finn. Finn this year is playing for 12 months. And eventually that takes its toll. And I think what you've got to do is you've got to prepare yourself right. You've got to have a little bit of luck along the way and look after yourself in the best possible way.
I see a question up here.
Next question. All right, perfect. Thanks, Heather.
My question is for Ned. When you look at Thomas Mueller going to Vancouver and Son going to LAFC and James Rodriguez going to Minnesota, are we looking to make any big moves?
Great question.
Yeah.
Really, really good question. And I think now when you look around MLS and league-wide, I think you see more of a strategy on bringing some of these star players here. I think the Thomas Mueller one for me is a little bit eye-opening. I'd single that one out. When you speak about Messi and Son and some of the world superstars that end up in a lot of the places where they want to end up to end their career, like a Miami or LA, the Thomas Mueller one, I think, in Vancouver is also probably what leads to James Rodriguez in Minnesota. James Rodriguez was actually a player we gave consideration to, not necessarily a positional fit that we think that we need right now. Doesn't necessarily fit our style of play either. What I would say is in years past, those probably would have been a quick no for us in terms of our market and what we think. And I would say for me now personally as well, it's been eye-opening to see some of these other players come to the league, and the opportunities are continuing to grow. I only think you're going to see more of these types of players in a lot of different markets, and I do think Portland's a lot more open to adding a player that's had a big-time career in Europe that can come in and give us the experience and quality that some of those players bring. So I appreciate your question. Very, very intelligent question.
I want to follow up, if it's all right with you, Ned. What about Mueller in Vancouver is eye-opening? Is it just that it's not the big market like Miami or LA that, like you said, you'd expect a player to want to seek out to finish off their career in beautiful weather in, or is there something else, the type of player it is? I mean, what I'm just curious to go a little bit more into what about that move has opened your eyes.
Well, I think you look at some of the past. You had Zlatan Ibrahimovic that was in the league for a while. Wayne Rooney was in the league for a while. David Beckham was in the league, and I think the game has changed now. Players' careers and the longevity and the opportunities that they have. MLS has probably opened the doors for a lot of these players to continue to come over and not just semi-retire, but actually give it their all, like you see with a Son, like you see with a Messi. And so I do think that there's some of these global superstars that's personality and character can fit within a lot of different markets. And for me, I just go back to the Mueller one. I found that one to be interesting because he's gone to a place in Vancouver where you probably didn't necessarily think that a superstar player might go. He's had a good impact when he's been healthy and he's been on the field. And so I think as these opportunities continue to come up, especially in a year where we have a World Cup in this country, right? So we're going to have a lot of these top players here in America, in the States, playing big World Cup games. I only think it's going to open up the door for more and more of these players to come. And I think we have to evolve as a club as well and be open to that.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah.
For Phil and Finn, how do you think the World Cup is going to affect players playing it like you or players that are taking a break?
Well, it's a great question because I think when we finish on the 23rd of May, I think we've got 52 days with until our next game, and I think purely from a coach's point of view, we've got 2 seasons within one this year. We've got the 14 games before the break, and then we've got the rest of the games after break with the Leagues Cup, US Open Cup for some teams, and then the other competitions, hopefully the playoffs as well. So I think this season's going to be really unique in terms of that. In terms of the preparation for a player, to play well at the World Cup, you've got to play well for your team. You cannot go into games, and this is something that we've spoke to Finn about, like the next 14 games, he has to perform at the absolute top level every single day, every single game, to then go into the World Cup and perform against the best, the absolute best of the best. And I think any player that's saving himself or cutting corners before that ends up not doing well in the World Cup, or sometimes not ends up getting to a World Cup. So I think, yes, it's obviously a massive motivation for somebody like Finn and Kamal and James Pantemis. But I think my experience is that you concentrate on what's happening now and then worry about the World Cup when it comes, because if Finn plays to his level from now for the next 14 games, he will be one of our best players. The team will do well, and then he'll go into the World Cup in incredible confidence, incredible form, and then he'll go and smash it against the best. He actually plays England in a warm-up game before the World Cup, and I've said that probably England will win about 7-1, something like that. So we've had a little bit of a bet on that, but it's a great question.
Me as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Phil kind of said it. The main thing for me is focusing on here and playing well here so that I can essentially prepare myself best for that. It's such an amazing event and such an amazing goal to have, but it kind of has to be put to the back of your mind, because if I think about that too much and I'm worrying about that, then I'm probably not going to be fully focused on what I'm doing here, which is the most important. So for players, both myself and other players within the squad that have ambitions to be at that World Cup, I think that these first 14 games of this season are going to be massive for us.
Yeah.
Heather, you're back in the hot seat.
All right.
It's not about pricing, but short term, what new vendors can we expect or options? And both short and long term, especially with the change in season, is there any plan to bring an espresso vendor back?
Oh my gosh, I am genuinely glad you asked that question, actually. So we have most of the same local vendors: Pizzicato, Cha Cha Cha, Killer Burger. In terms of the local subs in the building, there's a lot of new menu items. We're doing I called it an Eras dog earlier. I think it's called the Decades dog. I cannot afford to be sued by Taylor Swift, so we are definitely calling it the Decades dog. But that will be inspired by the different decades of Providence Park. So there'll be some fun new menu items, and I think our concessionaire does a really nice job of changing that up as the season goes on and the weather changes and all of that. So there should be some good options. We are going to be announcing soon a coffee partner, so we will have coffee back in the building. Local partner, yeah. Thank you, Phil. Thank you. So yes, it's been a little bit of a drought there, so we are excited to bring coffee and espresso back into the building, and that'll be available really throughout the building. It won't be just that one stand like we had with Dutch Bros. So that's exciting. Yeah, so I think we have some good new stuff on tap, and we'll continue to change it up as the year goes on.
Hello. So, two very important things. Zenners, the sausages, why is that not a venue? Like, is it?
Why is it not what?
It's not, you can't just go get it and buy it. Like the little sausages.
Oh,
They're
like in the grocery store?
No, you
Oh.
can get
Oh,
it in the
here.
grocery store, but I
Yeah.
want to buy it at the venue because I want to sit there and eat those little
Oh,
sausages.
as opposed to the hot dog? I don't, I'll raise that one. I'm not 100% sure why we don't offer that.
No, it's just, I've worked in the food industry and it just, Killer Burger, winning, awesome. But no, it's just one of those funny things. And I'm just like, why can't I get these little sausages that they served to us at a photo shoot last year?
Phil, can you look into that for me, please?
I've actually been wondering that same thing the entire night.
No, they're delicious.
Yeah.
We actually did a hot dog tasting, a Zenner's hot dog tasting, before the season a couple weeks ago to test the all beef versus their more traditional hot dog.
I don't
It was
care
a
what
very
they're putting in it.
controversial meeting. Yeah.
Just keep it coming. It's delicious. Anyhow, also from behalf of a fan of this Timbers organization, thank you, Diego Chara. He is such a gentleman. I've had the opportunity to meet him twice. I think he signed my jersey twice. So, cheers to him and
Build the statue, Ned.
Yeah.
Gentlemen.
Amen. Cheers. 16 years. I just saw him after practice today. He's ready to go, by the way. He says he feels good physically and mentally. He'll be 40 in a couple months. He'd always said to us whenever we did, we come on the old show Timbers in 30 with Ross and I, and he'd always tell us, I want to play until I'm 40. And he'll be there in a couple months. It's pretty remarkable, I think. Question.
This is for Finn. What stadium is hardest to play in because the environment or any other reason?
What stadium is the hardest to play in? Last year, playing away at LAFC was pretty hard. They have a pretty good atmosphere there, and they obviously got a good team. So that's a hard place to go. To be honest, the other hardest one would be Orlando because we had to travel 6 hours and it was hot, and yeah, it just takes it out of you when you travel that far and then have to play in that heat. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
So I guess this question is kind of for anybody that has insight on it. I know at the beginning of last season, the first several games, there was some people that might have been a little bit critical of some of the refereeing that was given towards our club, whoever that could be. I'm wondering if Pro has kind of announced to you guys or given any insight to you guys into any changes they might be making, any additions, anything they're doing to kind of help American soccer culture when it comes to the refereeing side of things.
Phil should not answer this one.
Maybe save the club some money.
Yeah, we go.
For Phil, but
Yellow cards to be given out. There we go.
we go through. So we just completed down in Coachella, but we go through a long, almost 2 hours, pro and referee meeting every single season, and obviously it's on me as well to continue to maintain relationships and communication with pro. At times, I don't think things are necessarily handled the way I'd like them to be. I think the biggest thing with referees, and I know Phil would echo the same thing, is we understand it's not going to be perfect. It's impossible to have that. I think what we ultimately strive for as a league is trying to have the standards be really high and really consistent. I think the consistency is probably the most important thing because no one wants to feel like you go through one game and something happens and it's deemed a certain way or it's ruled a certain way, and then the next game it's completely changed, and you feel like you're not quite getting some of those bounces that happen along the way. So it's a huge part of the game, a huge part of the game, and there's still a lot of subjectivity around it as well. I think some of the new rules and the VAR have at least helped, get things right and make sure that things are taken care of and handled in a better way. But they've also continued to introduce new rules in terms of some of the substitution stuff and concussion subs. And now you look at the injury rules that they have on the player to try to cut down on time wasting and some of these things. So they are trying to ultimately speed up the game, have the game be more minutes, more average minutes where the ball is actually in play and we're watching players play. So there's a worldwide, I think, initiative from a lot of different soccer people in soccer leagues around the world to continue to try and improve it. MLS will try and do its part. I do believe in that. And I think we've just got to continue, like I said, to strive for that consistency.
Are you allowed to comment on that, Jake? You see games all over the league.
Look, I'll say, from my perspective as a commentator, the referees are very transparent with us, and we do a monthly video call with them where they go over all kind of the big incidents of the past month, and we can request, kind of follow up on any incident that happened. And they're usually, the first to say, yeah, this was wrong. Like, we wish this was called differently on the field. I don't know if they tell you that, Phil. But going back to the Galaxy play, right, at the end of last year, that should have been a penalty. And they told us straight up, like, yeah, that should have been a penalty. They got that one wrong. It cost the Timbers 2 points. And there's similar plays throughout the year. We might have a different experience and relationship than the coaches, the players, the GMs. But at least having that as a resource as a commentator is very helpful. And I find it to be, at least from my perspective, pretty admirable that Alan Kelly, who's kind of in charge there, Mark Geiger, will at least put themselves out for an hour once a month and let us kind of grill them about all the calls that we called and thought it was wrong, and give us what I feel is a relatively honest explanation. I never feel like they're just defending stuff for the sake of defending it, kind of digging their heels in. But again, my experience may be different than these guys' experiences. And it's less in the heat of the moment, of course, right, than it is there. So, yes, that's my experience. Yeah.
So this one's actually for you.
Yeah,
They answered a lot of my heavy questions from online. So what do you see as a team dynamic outside of what's on the field? What do you experience behind the scenes?
For me? Oh, man. I mean,
All my heavy questions.
yeah, no, it's great. I mean, look, one thing I'll say is I've been around the club for 12 years now, and with very few exceptions, like every player, every coach, everybody in the organization are wonderful people, and that makes it it's just enjoyable to be around. I'm not around the club as much now as I was in the pre-Apple days, right, when I had a desk up there and I was here every day and a training multiple days a week. But I'm out there at least one day a week usually. And, yeah, they're great. I mean, just seeing Diego again for, starting another season, 16 years now. He is just the nicest person. He is a true gentleman. He's a great, steward of this club. And it goes beyond that. There's very few, again, in 12 years, we're talking hundreds of players, very few players where I could feel I've had any even slightly negative interaction with, right? And that's a credit, I think, to the people who bring the players into the club and the culture that's created. That's on that side of things, just what I see. And then similarly in the front office, where it's, again, I'm much less connected there now than I was 3 years ago and before that. But it's a great organization, and it's one that I actively choose to continue to be connected with because I'm really proud of it, and I'm proud of on the fields and the soccer side and off the field and what it means to the city of Portland more than anything, and what kind of soccer means here. It's something that I want to continue to be at least a little bit connected to as much as I can. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah. So, question that stems from the playoff and the end of the playoff last year. There was this switch for the final 2 games against San Diego to a man marking system, which you kind of talked about as kind of a departure, and it was a noticeable, interesting development, I thought. Especially in light of, if you look at trends in the Premier League right now, hybrid man marking is kind of a trend that you see. So I just wondered how you digested that and how you're thinking about like out of possession structure for the season, in light of that and just in larger trends.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, because I think modern day football is going more towards man-to-man marking because of the physicality of all the players, that, players can keep up with each other a lot more. In the past, probably when me and Ned played, there was always probably 1 or 2 players in the team that couldn't move around as much as the others. I think in modern football, we have 11 or 20 athletes in the roster. In terms of the playoff game, we went down to San Diego in the first game, and I thought we did okay, actually. Then we got Jimmy Forey sent off, and then we obviously lost the game. And what I thought was going into the second game was they were obviously an outstanding team who were playing really well, full of confidence. And I wanted to really get into them. I wanted to make it a cup tie. I wanted to make it a fight. I wanted to take them out of their comfort zone. I think we did in the home leg. I think we created a game that was totally opposite to the way that they wanted to play the game. Now, the game away, and I felt coming out of that we had real momentum. The game away, I made a mistake in terms of the way that we actually played. I actually thought that the tactics was actually good. I just picked the wrong team. I picked the wrong players to play that system on that game. And you know, I felt at the time we needed, because I felt there was a gap between the two teams, and I wanted to take a risk to try and win a game of football. It didn't work, but I think in terms of the way that we'd played that season, from every goal kick, we'd man-to-man press mainly from most goal kicks. We wanted to win the ball high. We wanted to be an aggressive team. I think with the introduction of Finn in particular at centre-back, we had a defender that could play 1v1 at the back, and it made me as a manager on the side totally safe because he could play 1v1, he had the strength, he had the speed, he could read the game, and it gave us a real front foot mentality going into the games. And I think we're going to be doing that a lot more this year because of the players that we've got in. And it's the way that modern football's going. I think you'll see from Columbus on Saturday, they man-to-man mark an awful lot. San Diego, man-to-man man an awful lot when the ball's in the higher phase of the game. So I think it's a trend in football that's going that way, purely and simply because of the physicality of the players that are now coming through.
I'm sort of curious about how you manage a very multicultural team. I know you're fluent in Spanish, but we have many nationalities on our team. How do you get them to gel? How do you get them to work together?
Yeah, I think that is. I think I made a conscious effort to learn Spanish. I think I've got an assistant who learns Spanish. I think the diversity of the whole staff, I think diversity means that you've got people from different backgrounds that can help you with the different cultures that come into the football club. When I first came here, there was a real strong Latino, Colombian, Argentinian, Chilean players within the group, and you have to adapt. You know, there's the way that they want to be spoken to is different to the way that somebody from New Zealand or somebody from North America wants to be spoken to. So I think that is something as a coach that you have to really, really tap into. But you also have to have people around you on your staff, from the sports scientists to the player care, to the team admin, that all have those qualities as well, because it's not just the player you're looking after. You know, it would be easy if you was just looking after a player, but we've got two team admins, we've got player care that have different diverse backgrounds, that understand the different diverse cultures that are in the football club. And then you have people like Diego Chara, people on the team that are multilingual, can speak Spanish, been in this country a long time, can educate people on where to live, where to go and eat, or integrate people into the team. Pipe Mora is an incredible human being in terms of that respect. Every time we sign a foreign player, him and his family take that foreign player into their house and they make sure that they settle really well. So I think it's about getting the right characters within the building, both on the staff and the player side. And I think you do have to have a diverse range of people that work for your staff now, because they have to be able to relate to different cultures that are coming into the football club.
Speaking of compressed second half of schedules, any word on if we're going to be in the U.S. Open Cup and Leagues Cup again? Are they going to kind of do the qualifications through the league like they did last year?
We are in the Leagues Cup, not in the Open Cup.
Not in the Open Cup this year.
Yeah, it was a shock to me as well.
Wow.
We fell within a very small group of teams. I think it was two teams maybe, one team from the West, one team from the East. That was not included.
Are they limiting the first division teams like they've been talking about for a while? Because I know that they had them out for like a year and then they brought some back in. And
they have it balanced out in terms of the number of competitions. So sorry, maybe didn't answer it in the best way possible. But you can only play in a certain number of competitions. We are one of, I think, two teams that for some reason fall short of one of the competitions. You know, so if you look at some teams that might be in CONCACAF and Leagues Cup, they are not in Open Cup. But for whatever reason, number of teams, formatting of the tournament, where we finished last season in terms of sort of middle of the pack in points, has us out of the Open Cup, but in the Leagues Cup.
We'll do one more question and finish it up here. Here, microphone's coming here to the corner.
This is for Heather, kind of not on the concessions aspect, but on clothing and apparel. I brought my sister to her first MLS game this last year. She wanted to get some Timber shirt, hat, something to represent, and she couldn't find anything under $40. Is there a way we can get some lower short costs just to try to help selling some of that stuff and get those newer people and represent Timbers? I understand MLS has a lot of higher price, but just bring the prices down on some of the basic ones to get those people that are just finding out and some they can afford.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of apparel pricing is set by the manufacturers, Adidas, et cetera, and we don't really have any control over it. We do have control over the product mix, and that's something that we try to get our retail partners to focus on is, how do we have a good mix of affordable items, if not always, T-shirts or sweatshirts, but the scarf program is a good example of that. We've tried to we have a scarf program unlike anyone else in MLS, custom made, designed by local artists. Like those programs are intended to have some of those more accessible price point merchandise items. But yeah, I mean, as someone who does not do an insignificant amount of online shopping, like all of this stuff is so expensive. But it is something that we will raise again with the merchandise partners because we do want everyone to be able to rep the club outside of the stadium. And we know that some of these things are really, really out of reach for sure.
Thank you all so much. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the questions. Thank you to Phil, Heather, Finn, and Ned for being open to answering the questions. It's great to see everybody. Have fun on Saturday night.